All right, so you should hopefully be done experimenting, and now we're going to do one more thing to our program. So what we're going to do is basically, this is great if we want our background color to stay the same the whole time, but there are many times where you want that background color to change. So maybe on one time, for the first few minutes it's blue, then it's red, then it's green. We want some change. We don't want to be restricted to just one value the entire time. And this is where our knowledge of variables is going to come in. So remember, red, green, and blue, those are intensity values. Those are represented by byte variables. So what we can do is we can create a byte variable, and we can then place that inside of our color object instead. So instead of picking concrete values from the beginning, we can instead pick a byte variable and then change that byte variable, which will in turn change our color object. So we need something to represent red intensity, green intensity, and blue intensity. And then we have to think about this a little bit. These are going to be used in draw to update the color on the background of our picture. However, they need to be updated in the update method, and because they need to be used in two methods, these variables need to be global. So they cannot be local variables. They need to be accessed by two different methods, and they need to be of the type byte because they can only access values between 0 and 255. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into the beginning of our program, and we're going to declare these globally. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump here, and if you go to the very, very beginning of the program, we are going to declare these globally. So right under public class game one, and then you see a couple other things that were declared globally. Now we're going to create a byte variable called red, start that off at 0, a byte variable called green, start that off at 0, and a byte variable called blue, and we'll start that off at 0 as well. So we have a variable for each color intensity. We're starting it off at 0. Now, if we go down here, currently I have a color object that I'm creating called background color, and that's what my screen is clearing to. So right now we have numbers in here, which is fine, but we want to make our program a little bit more flexible. So this represents our red intensity. So instead of having 200 for our red intensity, we're going to put the variable red. And now what will happen is every time this program runs, it will go and look at the value that red is currently equal to, and then it will put that color in for the red intensity so it can change over time. Then this second 200, that's our green intensity. We're going to replace that with our green intensity variable. And this variable here is our blue intensity. We're going to replace it with our blue intensity variable. So here you can see these are currently equal to 0. So we expect the background to be black because 0, 0, 0. And if we press start, our program will access those colors for red, green, and blue, put them into the color object, create that color, and then display it to the screen. So you can see that right here. But we want to add some flexibility into our program, and we actually want red, green, and blue to increment. So if we go up here into the update section, remember this is where we update our variables, and this runs 60 times per second. So we're going to go up here and we're going to update these values. Now I'm going to use some shortcuts that we will talk about later on, but there's a shortcut called red++. And what this will do is it will increment red by 1 every 60th of a second. So now if I press start, you'll see that it increases red every 60th of a second. Kind of cool. So we want to do the same thing with blue and the same thing with green. So we want to increase green, or blue, excuse me, and we want to increase green. So this plus increases them by 1 60 times a second, and it will increase it every 60th. Now remember, that's why it's going to keep changing. It's going to keep updating. So we got to be careful using the update method because it will continue to change things at a very, very fast pace. Now, if I press start, what you will notice is that those variables are all incrementing and the screen fades from black to white and then abruptly does change back to black. And we'll talk about why that is doing that in a couple of lessons. So now you've at least created a little bit of a Moodlight. It changes colors over time, and you should have a solid understanding of how variables work, objects work, classes work, and methods work, and how the mono game kind of works with all of those to make a program. So this is the end of this first part of the program. Don't delete this program. We will come back to it in later lessons throughout this unit. So you can move on to the next video.